Good morning, everyone. I hope you all are doing okay. Today I'm here to give you a lecture on chapter number 5. The name of the chapter is Reproduction in Plants. It is on page number 40. Kindly open your books so that it would be easy for you to understand whatever I am teaching. The first thing that we are going to talk about is reproduction. Now, what is reproduction? As we know, every living thing is eventually going to die. So living things including animals, plants, insects, humans produce young ones that look like them so that their species do not become extinct. The process by which plants and animals give birth to offspring is called reproduction. Only those living things survive that reproduce, otherwise they will become extinct. Now what does extinct means? When the entire species of living things die, we call them extinct. Examples of some extinct animals are dinosaurs and dodo. Now we are going to talk about how living things like plants reproduce. Plants reproduce by the process of sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. What happens in sexual reproduction? In sexual reproduction, a tiny male cell joins with a female cell to produce seed. This joining of male and female cell is called fertilization. In sexual reproduction, plants reproduce with the help of seeds. Where are seeds formed? Seeds are formed in a flower. A flower is called the reproductive organ of the plant. A flower consists of both male and female cell. Now let's talk about the parts of a flower. There are 4 main parts of a flower: sepal, petals, stamen, and carpel. Sepal is the green and leaf-like structure, and it protects the flower at birth stage. Petals are brightly colored and scented to attract insects. It contains the sugary nectar. Stamen are the male reproductive organs. It has a filament and anther. The male cells are pollen grains which are made in anther. Carpel is the female reproductive organ. The sticky part is stigma. Underneath it is a stalk called style, and at the base of it is ovary. The female sex cells, ovules, are made in the ovaries. In sexual reproduction, the first step or process that occurs is pollination. A flower must be pollinated before it makes seeds. Now, what is pollination? Pollination is the act of transferring of pollen grains from male reproductive organ, that is stamen, to the female reproductive organ, that is carpel. There are 2 types of pollination: self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination is the transfer of pollen grain from stamen to the stigma of the same flower or to another flower on the same plant. Cross-pollination is the transfer of pollen grain between stamen of one flower to stigma of another flower on different plants of the same species. The main difference between self-pollination and cross-pollination is that in self-pollination, young plants are produced which are almost the same as parent plant, while in cross-pollination, wider varieties of young plants of the same species are formed. There are basically different ways through which pollen grains can be transferred to different flowers. They can be carried with the help of insects, winds, bats, and birds. The first way is with the help of insects. A major role of an insect is that of a pollinator, meaning they transfer pollen grain to different plants. Once the insect lands on the flower, it gets pollen all over its body by the coming in contact with anther. Then the insect moves and sits on another flower, making those pollen grains fall in the stigma, and therefore pollination occurs. Now we are going to talk about the characteristics of insect pollinated flowers. They have brightly colored petals to attract insects. The flowers are scented and have a lot of nectar to attract insects. The pollen grains are large and sticky so that it can easily stick to the body of insect. Flowers tend to face upwards so that insects can easily approach them. The flowers have sticky stigma to take the pollen off the insect's body. Examples of insect-pollinated flowers are petunias, morning glories, lupins, roses, and there are so many others. Pollination can also occur with the help of wind. In wind pollination, pollen is distributed with the help of wind. Now we will talk about the wind-pollinated flowers. Wind-pollinated flowers either have no petals or small, dull petals. These flowers have no scent or nectar. They produce large number of lightweight pollen grains which are on the long filament or stalks which hang outside the flower. Flowers are usually hanging down so that the wind can easily shake them. They have spreading feathery stigma so that they can easily catch the passing pollen grains. Examples of wind-pollinated flowers are the ones on hazel tree and the flowers on grass. Bird pollination is the pollination of flowering plants by birds. The characteristics of flowers pollinated by birds are as follows. Flowers pollinated by birds are tube-shaped so that a bird can easily put its beak inside. They are usually bright colored to attract birds. The flowers have little scent. The flowers produce large amount of nectar so that birds can come and feed on it. The pollen grains are large and sticky so that they stick to the feather of the birds. The examples of the bird pollinators are hummingbirds, sunbirds, honey creepers, and spider hunters. The process of pollination can also occur with the help of bats. A bat flies to the plant, drinks nectar from the flower, pollen grains stick to its body. When it travels to another plant, it drops the pollen there. Now we are going to talk about the flowers pollinated by bat. Most of the bat species are found in Africa, Southeast Asia, Central America, and the Pacific Island. Fruits like mangoes, bananas, kapok trees, and cacti depend on bats for pollination. Bat-pollinated flowers are often large and bell-shaped so that a bat's mouth can easily enter through. They are white or pale colored flowers. The petals of such flowers usually open at night because most bats are nocturnal animals and they look out for food at night. The flowers produce large amount of nectar and give a strong smell to attract bats. The examples of bat pollinators are flying foxes and fruit bats. Thank you.